right, so you want to get a grip on Forex, huh? Really understand it.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Okay.
This self-study guide, the Forex Trading Course,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really smart choice. It doesn't just throw charts at you.
Yeah.
It digs into the why, the
Absolutely.
forces that actually move these markets.
It's like the difference between knowing what the weather is and understanding like the meteorology behind it.
I like that.
You know this book.
Yeah.
It goes deep on that fundamental analysis.
Okay, so let's unpack this thing.
Yeah.
One thing that surprised me,
Okay.
reading through it,
Yeah.
was the link between housing markets and currency values.
I don't know why I never put those two together,
Right. Well,
but they're right there.
yeah, it's not always obvious, but think about it this way.
Duh.
Central banks, the ones, controlling interest rates,
Yeah.
they obsess over housing data.
Really?
Oh, yeah. A red-hot housing market often means higher interest rates to cool things down
Right.
because they don't want things to overheat.
Right.
And higher interest rates make a currency more attractive to global investors.
Makes sense because you can get a higher return
Exactly.
on your investment.
Exactly.
Okay, so what happens then when a housing market cools off?
Does that weaken the currency?
It can. It can. Look at the UK right now.
Okay.
Their housing market's a bit rocky, and the Bank of England is in a tough spot.
Mm.
They're trying to manage inflation fears and the impact of higher rates on borrowers.
Right.
That uncertainty makes the pound less predictable for investors.
So are you saying that if I want to be a good currency trader, I should be checking international housing reports?
Absolutely. And keep an eye on housing-related stocks, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Companies like Lennar Homes in the U.S.,
Okay.
their performance is basically tied to the housing sector.
Right.
If their stock is up, it might be a clue that the U.S. housing market is strengthening,
Which could then impact
which might in turn impact the dollar.
the dollar.
So-
Okay, that's a great tip.
Now, the book also dives into this low inflation environment we're in.
Which feels strange even saying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we think inflation was just a fact of life?
Right. It's been a persistent force historically,
Yeah.
but things are different now.
Yeah.
After the 2008 financial crisis, a lot of economies are dealing with stubbornly low inflation, even deflation in some places.
Deflation.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't sound good.
No, it's...
How does that impact currencies?
Well, deflation can signal a weakening economy, which makes a currency less attractive.
Oh.
Central banks really don't like deflation.
Right.
So they've been trying everything to combat it and jumpstart growth. But that creates volatility.
So it's actually a really interesting time
It is.
to be watching
It's a fascinating time to be watching currency markets.
because of all this.
Yeah, because of all this.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my
We've
interest.
got housing, we've got inflation, or the lack of it.
What else should I be paying attention to?
Well, it's impossible to discuss the global economy without mentioning China.
They're kind of a big deal.
Yeah, they are. But how does their economic power play into the currency market?
So China's influence is massive in so many ways.
Okay.
But let's start with commodities.
Okay.
They're the biggest consumer of raw materials.
Okay.
Copper, oil, iron, or you name it.
Right.
So when their economy slows, commodity prices often drop, and that ripples out to currencies around the globe.
So if China's economy slows down,
Yeah.
a currency like the Australian dollar,
Yes.
which relies heavily on those exports,
Very much so.
could weaken.
Exactly. And it goes beyond Australia.
Really?
The Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar.
Wow.
They're all influenced by China.
Huh.
And then there's the question of China's massive dollar reserves.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting.
Trillions of dollars.
Trillions with a T.
Trillions with a T.
What happens if they decide to switch things up with those dollars?
It could be a huge deal.
Yeah.
If they significantly reduce their dollar holdings, the dollar would probably weaken
Okay.
and other currencies would strengthen. But it's not just about what they do, but how and when they do it.
So it's like a big,
Chess game
it's a huge game of chess.
with these currencies.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another crucial aspect of Forex market sentiment,
Okay.
which is really just a fancy way of saying, how are people feeling about a certain currency?
Because even with all the data we have available,
Right.
it's still people making those trades
Yes.
based on a
Psychology.
mix of logic and emotion.
Exactly. That's why understanding things like consumer confidence can be so important.
Okay.
For example, the U.S. Federal Reserve aims for controlled inflation,
Mm-hmm.
while Japan is fighting deflation with its aggressive Abenomics strategy.
Right.
These different approaches impact their respective currencies and influence investor sentiment.
Okay.
Even if a report comes out that seems positive, if people are nervous, it can still move the market.
Interesting.
So how do you actually measure something as intangible as market sentiment?
Are there indicators for that?
There are a few key things to watch.
Consumer confidence surveys, like the U.S. Consumer Confidence Index or the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, can give you a read on how optimistic or pessimistic people are about the economy.
Right.
That translates to spending habits, which definitely influences currency values.
Interesting.
You can also dig deeper into reports from organizations like the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland
Okay.
to understand the nuances of expected inflation and how that might shape market sentiment.
So if everyone's feeling good about the future, it's
Yeah.
generally good for the currency as well.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
But market sentiment can turn on a dime based on news events, economic data, even rumors.
Oh, wow.
You have to learn to interpret those events through the lens of market psychology, not just raw numbers.
So really understanding
Yeah.
how people process
Absolutely.
this information
Yeah.
and how it makes them feel.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is.
Okay, so we've talked about housing, we've talked about inflation.
We've talked about China. We've talked about market sentiment.
These are all these big global macroeconomic forces.
Yeah,
Now, this book also dives into some specific currencies
it does.
and how they react
Yes.
to these forces.
Absolutely.
Should we take a look at some of those?
Let's do it. Let's dive into some of those currency personalities.
I like it. Currency personality.
Yeah.
All right, so who are some of the big players we should get to know?
Well, we can't ignore the Australian dollar.
The Aussie.
Big name, the Aussie, as we discussed earlier.
Right.
Commodity prices really influence it,
Okay.
especially those tied to resources like gold, copper, and iron ore. And again, a lot of those are very much influenced
Let's
by
look at
China's economic performance.
So when I'm thinking about the Aussie,
Yeah,
I'm really thinking about China
you're thinking about China.
as well.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
What else we got?
The Canadian dollar,
The loonie,
the loonie. That always sounds so funny to me.
right?
The loonie, how's it different from?
So the loonie's got its own personality.
It's closely tied to two main things.
Okay.
The U.S. dollar and crude oil prices. Canada's a big oil exporter.
Right.
So when oil prices are up, the loonie's usually doing well.
Makes sense. Okay, the Japanese yen has always fascinated me.
Okay.
It seems like whenever things get a little uncertain
Yeah,
globally,
right.
the yen just gets stronger.
It's the whole safe haven thing.
Right.
When investors get nervous, they flock to the yen,
Okay.
which drives up its value.
Because it's seen as...
It has to do with Japan's large current account surplus and its status as a creditor nation.
So it's like the currency equivalent of hiding under a blanket when a thunderstorm hits.
You could say that.
But I'm guessing it's not always that straightforward.
But just like with anything in Forex,
Right.
it's not always that straightforward.
Right.
The yen's value can also be influenced by Japan's own monetary policy
Right.
and how their economy is performing,
Of course, their own internal
their own stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't leave out the euro.
The euro,
That feels like
a whole other...
whole other level of
Oh.
all the different countries involved.
You're not wrong. The euro's value is influenced by the entire eurozone,
Right.
which, as you know, is made up of multiple economies,
It's one.
each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
For example, deflation has been a big concern in the eurozone,
Yeah.
leading the European Central Bank to implement quantitative easing.
Quantitative easing. Okay.
Yeah, do you remember what that is?
Refresh my memory.
Essentially, it's when a central bank injects money into the economy by buying bonds.
Right.
It's meant to lower interest rates and encourage borrowing and spending,
right.
hopefully boosting the economy.
So that more people will.
Yeah, to try and get things moving.
Things moving. Okay.
I thought being
So the euro is just inherently a little more unpredictable because you've got all these.
it's like trying to manage the economic ups and downs of an entire continent.
Right. Exactly.
Right. That's a great way to put it. And that's part of what makes Forex so interesting.
Right.
There's always something new happening.
Yeah.
Some
yeah.
new connection to make.
Okay. So we've talked about these big global forces. Now we're getting into these specific currency personalities.
Right.
How do we use all this to actually trade?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
Because I'm reading this book.
Yeah.
It's talking about scalping.
Right.
It's talking about day trading,
Mm-hmm.
swing trading.
Mm-hmm.
How do I even know where to begin?
That's a key question every trader has to ask themselves.
Right.
There's no one right answer.
Okay.
No one size fits all.
So you're saying it really depends on
In Forex,
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
Each trading style comes with its own risks and rewards.
Okay.
And finding the right fit depends on your risk tolerance, how much time you can dedicate,
Right.
and what your overall trading goals are.
So could you walk us through just a few of them?
Yeah.
What is a scalper?
Okay, so a scalper, it is intense. Imagine trying to make a profit from those tiny, quick price fluctuations.
Oh, wow.
That's what scalpers do.
Okay.
They're constantly entering and exiting trades.
Wow.
Sometimes within minutes, even seconds, trying to grab a few pips here and there.
So you'd have to be,
That's high-speed, high-pressure approach.
like, you'd have to be watching it constantly.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Okay, what about day trading?
Okay, so day trading,
Is that a little more
it's a bit more manageable for some people.
manageable?
Yeah, day trading is more about focusing on price movements throughout a single trading day.
Okay.
So you're
Yeah.
not holding on to any trades overnight,
Which some people would find very stressful.
which can be less stressful for some people.
Okay.
Day traders use a mix of technical indicators and strategies
Mm-hmm.
to spot opportunities that might only last a few hours.
Okay.
So it's still fast-paced,
Still fast-paced, but not...
but not quite the adrenaline rush of scalping.
Right, okay, what if I'm more interested in, like, those longer-term
If you want those longer-term trends,
trends? Yeah.
that's where swing trading comes in.
Okay.
Swing traders are all about riding those bigger waves in the market,
Okay.
holding trades for several days, even weeks.
Okay.
They're not as concerned with those tiny short-term fluctuations.
So patience is key.
Patience is key. It's more about identifying those larger market trends and sticking with your strategy.
And tuning out the noise.
Tuning out the noise, exactly.
Okay, swing trading.
Now, if you love following economic news and data releases, you might be interested in news trading.
Ooh, news trading. That sounds like
Yeah,
you'd really have to know your stuff.
you would.
So news trading, it sounds like you'd need a deep understanding of
You really have to be on top of.
how these economic indicators work
Yeah, it's like being an economic detective,
and how they might affect different currencies.
looking for clues in those data releases and trying to predict how the market will react.
Okay, and then there's carry trading, which is what?
Carry trading, that's a fun one. So carry trading is about exploiting interest rate differences between currencies.
Okay. I remember us kind of touching on that earlier, but
Yeah,
can you break it down a little bit?
sure. Imagine you borrow money in a currency with a low interest rate.
Yeah.
Like the Japanese yen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you use that borrowed money to invest in a currency with a higher interest rate,
Okay.
say the New Zealand dollar.
Mm-hmm.
You're essentially profiting from the difference in those interest rates,
So you're making money off the
like earning a little bonus just for holding that currency.
spread.
Right.
Interesting. But that sounds risky too.
There's always risk in Forex trading. That's the nature of the game.
Right, of course.
With carry trading, the big risk is that the exchange rate between those two currencies
Okay.
could shift against you,
Mm-hmm.
wiping out any gains you made from the interest rate difference.
So it's not...
The guaranteed win by any amount.
Oh, no. There are no guarantees in Forex.
Right.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we've got all these different trading styles.
It seems like each of them has
They all have their own
challenges, their own rewards.
personalities almost, you know.
Yeah, I like how you keep coming back to that personality idea.
It's helpful.
It is helpful. It's a good way to think about it.
It is.
It's like finding which of these trading styles
Which one's right for you?
matches your personality best.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And that's why this book is such a great resource.
Okay.
It encourages you to really understand these different approaches
Okay.
and figure out which one aligns best with your personality
Right.
and your goals.
It's not just telling you what to do.
No, it's about empowering you
It's about
to make the best decisions
giving you the tool,
for your own situation.
the information you need to make those decisions for yourself.
Exactly. But regardless of what style clicks with you, the key to success in Forex is knowledge,
Okay.
discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to learn from your wins and losses.
So it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, definitely not.
It's really about educating yourself.
It's a journey,
Yeah.
not a race.
Putting in the time.
Absolutely. And remember, Forex isn't just about making money.
Okay.
It's about understanding the global economy
Right.
and how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together.
This has been really eye-opening. I feel like I'm starting to see those connections now
You start to.
between economic forces, market sentiment, these currency personalities.
It all comes together.
It really does.
Huh.
So for someone who's listened to this and wants to continue exploring Forex,
What would you say is the most important thing to focus on?
I'd say start with building a solid foundation in those economic fundamentals.
Okay, so really understanding.
Understand what makes currencies move.
Or
Keep a close eye on those key economic indicators we talked about.
mm-hmm.
Develop a sense for how those currency personalities behave.
Mm-hmm.
Then gradually start exploring different technical analysis tools and trading strategies.
Okay.
But always remember, there's no magic formula in Forex.
It's really about
There's no magic bullet.
right. You got
Being patient.
to put in the work.
Yeah.
You got to do your homework.
Well, this has been fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive into Forex with us.
It's been great chatting with you.
And to you, our listener, as you delve deeper into this exciting world of Forex.
Here's a final thought to ponder.
Based on everything we've discussed today, what global event
Do you think
could shake up the currency markets in the coming months, and how? Keep those thinking caps on.
Never stop exploring.
And happy trading.